you everybody. It's great to see you all here on a sunny, lovely day up in Bollington. It's my great pleasure to welcome James once again, who's generously agreed to come up here and share his wisdom through the teachings on a subject which, as I get older, I must admit is getting slightly more attention from me. Anyway, today and this weekend, he's going to address us on working with life, working with death, looking at what being alive is from the Buddhist point of view, and how this illuminates the death process. And I'm certain this will be, as usual, a very enjoyable event, but hopefully also illuminating. So thank you, James.
Pleasure.
Over to you.
So, the main thing that helps us in life and death is being present. That is to say, not being distracted by thoughts about the past or the future, but just being present with whatever is arising in the moment. So we could begin with a little quiet sitting practice, focusing on the breath as it moves in and out at the nostrils. Or if you have another practice you're used to doing, you could do that. The purpose of this practice is to settle our attention on the sensation at the nostrils. That's happening because that sensation is always there, but usually we disregard it. It's subtle, so it requires us to focus in. And whenever we find ourselves going off after thoughts or feelings or other sensations in the body, as soon as we recognize this, we just very gently bring our attention back to the sensation. And in that way, the mind settles down. Because the more we are involved in hopes and fears, in planning, and considerations of other possibilities, we're in the realm of the imagination. And as we know, when emotions get mixed with our imagination, we can be carried into fantasy realms which are happy-inducing or sadness-inducing. But actually we're just here. So it's returning to the simplicity of just being present. So we'll do that for a while. Here we are. We are alive. We know that we're going to die, but what death is exactly, we don't know. And in many ways, of course, we can't know. So we have all kinds of ideas about that. Some people believe that when they die, that's the end. That the material body is the support for consciousness and for the mind, and therefore when the functioning of the body ceases, when the blood stops flowing, when the brain stops operating, that is the end. Other people believe that when they die, they will go for some kind of judgment and will be sent to a good place or a bad place according to someone's evaluation of their deeds. Other people believe that you can be born again and again, and that process of rebirth continues until there is a relaxation of the energy that drives it. These are all ideas or beliefs. They are a kind of working hypothesis. And according to which hypothesis we take up, it directs the focus of our intentionality, what we're going to do with our life. So first of all, this morning, I think it might be useful to take up this one life hypothesis and see what, if anything, Buddhism has to say that might be useful if you believe that when you die, that's it. And then we'll go on to look more traditionally at the Buddhist overview of what the mind is, what consciousness is, and what the nature of the death process is, and how we might work with that. because we can't really establish the truth of these things, we only have our belief, I think it's important to try to see what are the implications of the hypothesis that we choose to adopt. In particular, what are the implications in two directions, wisdom and compassion? Do I have greater fixation on the openness of my life situation? Am I open to life? And do I feel connected with living things, with human beings, with animals? Or am I enclosed inside my self-preoccupations, my desire to get the most out of life? As this, we had a kind of NutriBullet, some kind of extractor, and we're squeezing every situation in order to get the real thing. That's, of course, a slightly grasping and retractive mode. We can think about things we might want to do before we die. If I don't have that experience, will I be unfulfilled? We can look back in our lives. We've all had many different kinds of experiences, and they may have been fulfilling at the time, but the fulfillment doesn't usually last very long. Even if you have a rich body of memories, and the memories are stimulating or inspiring, they are memories, and memories are not the same as direct experiences. So let's imagine we have this life, and then it will be over, and that will be the end of me. What shall I do with my life? I'm here. What am I here as? Clearly I have a body, I have a voice, and I have a mind. My body can be healthy, not healthy. My body can be interested in moving out into the world or seek comfort, might even want to just be under the duvet. My voice may choose to be very connective to other people, to engage with them, or move towards silence. My mind might be full of many different thoughts and interests, curiosity, a desire to explore, or the mind could become somewhat more still, perhaps in a stagnant way, somewhat sinking and without much enthusiasm or enjoyment of possibilities which might be available. But this is what I have. I have a body and a voice and a mind, and a big marker which distinguishes us, as far as we can tell, from animals is that our capacity for communication through language is very rich and complicated. So this allows us to play with ideas, and we have the capacity to imagine many different things. And then what we imagine can be activated by our attention, which is what we experience in the meditation practice. Because you think, I'm going to focus on this simple sensation of my breath, but then we find ourselves going off on some little flight of fancy. Because our attention has gone with the potential of a thought pattern, and the attention is like the fuel that allows the thought pattern to unfold and take us hither and thither. And then the attention slips away from that, and then we're back here again, and then we go off again. We imagine that's going on all the time. That because we are very skillful in holding our lives together, we don't give full attention to what we're doing. We're often on a fairly assumptive or automatic pilot basis, just continuing the patterns of our lives, while many other thoughts, feelings, and sensations are taking our attention. You can walk down the street without much awareness of what's there. Make a cup of tea without really noticing what you're doing. You can then drink the cup of tea without really even tasting the tea. So the question would be, well, where am I if I'm not here? What is it to be in a kind of daydream? The body hasn't gone anywhere, but it's as if the mind has gone someplace. So where does it go? So a few days ago there was a lot of snow. So we can remember being the experience of having snow and how different the world seems. And that's a memory. And when we remember the snow, where do we go in a memory? We're here, but somehow gone. So there we can see that the capacity of our mind to be present, the focus of that presence can be in what is actual through the senses, or it can be in fantasy constructs. And these fantasy constructs can lead us in all sorts of directions, some just drifting daydreams that don't really affect very much, but we can invent new kinds of weapons. Mr. Putin has announced that he has a whole new range of nuclear weapons that he wants to bring into the world. So all over the world we see that a lot of mental activity goes into the development of methods of destruction. We have these people who were attacked in Salisbury by some chemical agent and still trying to work out precisely what it was. Someone in a laboratory somewhere thought, let's find a way to cause optimal damage to living beings, particularly humans. And over the years we've had many kind of weapons, from throwing stones to spears to bow and arrow to guns to very advanced weapons that we have now. People have imagined these things, and the imagination has been plugged into the possibility of getting a job, making a profit, getting a new house, a new car, giving your girlfriend some nice jewels to make her happy, and you can do that on the basis of creating the potential to kill other people. But you could also use your creative intelligence as a way of helping other people, developing new healing medicines and so on. So we see that we have this huge potential of our imagination. And then, of course, we have categories of evaluation. So according to certain dispositions or certain orientations of life, we think it's a very bad thing to make weapons. Or we think it's a very good thing to make weapons. Our foreign secretary is very keen on selling more weapons to Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis are very keen to use these weapons to control other countries. So, in terms of British industry and British jobs, it's a really good thing. In terms of the people getting bombed, it's a really bad thing. So, what criteria will we use? This is a complexity of our human situation. Now, if we think I've only got one life and there's not going to be any ethical or moral judgment when I die, then I'm concerned simply with getting away with it. So if I can make a lot of money out of selling weapons, why shouldn't I do that? I'm not suffering. I don't know the people who are going to suffer. And of course, I don't even have to believe what I get on the news. I can call it fake news. So I can disbelieve the evidence of the negative consequence of my actions, because that's sort of abstract. But in my hand, I've got the dosh. I've got the money. So here's something quite concrete, and the money's useful, and I like the money, and the people in my family and so on, they also like the money. So that looks like a kind of pragmatic proof of the value of what I'm doing. So this is what the Dharma focus would try to help us see. Oh, I'm a tricksy kind of person. I can really play games with myself. I can lie to myself. I can cheat myself. I can have a sense of the implications of what I do, and yet I don't follow the clear line of these implications, because I delude myself into believing that what I want is going to be good. And so, from a Dharma point of view, is it unhelpful to have that kind of self-deception? We would say yes, because once you get into self-deception, it's like smoke and mirrors. You're in a world of illusion, and you keep developing the illusions in order to keep the show on the road. And if you do that, then although there are consequences to your action, you can try to disregard them as far as possible. If you go to buy cigarettes nowadays, on the packet it's got some pretty disgusting photographs, great tumors and all kind of horrible images. And yet people still open up the packet and start to smoke. So that's quite amazing. I know, but I don't know. Do you care? Yeah, well, I don't want to get sick, but I don't know. So that don't know is a kind of mental dullness, which is a very important notion in Buddhism, that we are not really in touch with the fresh vitality of the moment. We think we see clearly, but in fact our perception is somewhat opaque, because it's mediated through the beliefs and desires and hopes and fears that we carry. When I look through the lens of my belief, the world appears in that particular way. So if you join the army, you learn that you're defending Queen and country, that you're working in the national interest. If you become a pacifist, then you start to become clear that the military industrial complex is quite a perverse use of resources in the world and leads to a great deal of distress. These are opposing views. What is the truth? And this is the problem when we are always relying on concepts as our means of interpretation and understanding. Because there are endlessly different opinions. You can read academic journals in which they have a lot of correspondence, in which people criticize other people's opinions about history. There's a lot of discussion about climate change now. What should you believe? What should you not believe? It's a kind of maelstrom of ideas and possibilities. So inside that, how will I know what to do with my time? And my time is limited because I don't know when I'm going to die. But I want to enjoy life, and I might want to feel that I'm a useful person in the world. So how will I proceed? So the key first point that Buddhism or Dharma would point to is maybe we should be a little bit suspicious of relying on mental constructs. Maybe our thoughts, which seem to be true, are not so reliable. Maybe they belong in the realm of fantasy construction rather than clarity. So when we do the simple meditation practice we began with, we're saying to ourselves, focusing on the sensation of the breath is more important and more valuable than wandering off after my thoughts. Our whole world is developed out of thoughts. So that simple practice is really quite radical. It says, you want thoughts, and thoughts seem to want you. And when these two come together, then you're tumbling in this movement of conceptual elaboration, of the development of ideas about the past, the future. But they're always thoughts about something. what will Brexit bring? Is the government going in the right direction? How will the French respond if we become really separated from Europe? What will happen in Calais? There are thousands of things to think about. This is why these kind of negotiations are so unbelievably tedious, because Brexit is Brexit. It's a very simple thing to say, but what actually manifests is something of unbelievable complexity, because our lives are interwoven together. And so now there's endless number of research papers going on and opinions thinking about. If you think about a piece of chocolate cake, that is not the same as eating it. Eating chocolate cake is direct and meaningful. Thinking about chocolate cake is a waste of time, because either you've got the cake, and if you got it, eat the damn thing, or don't bother thinking about it. So, if we start to observe our minds, we see, so much of my life is talking about things. And you meet someone and say, how are you doing? And we're immediately into a story talking about ourselves. We are creatures of communication through explanation, through unfolding lots of ideas about what is going on. But the idea is not operating on the same plane as our embodied presence. So, if you're thinking of one life, the body becomes very, very important. Something is happening. What is it? So we have a sensation. Maybe you have a backache. Maybe you are prone to headaches. Maybe you have sciatica. All kinds of ailments can come into the body. There is a sensation. What does it mean? The first thing it usually means for us is, poor me. Why me? I don't want this. You can have it. Please, take my pain. Doesn't go away, so a bit of self-pity is very important. Now, self-pity means I'm thinking about myself. But what is happening to me? My back hurts. My back hurts is a construct. What is actually occurring is some kind of sharp intrusion of pain. The pain can be dull, it can be hot, it can be tearing. These kind of pains are usually influenced by the amount of dampness in the air, whether we've been taking exercise, the kind of chair we're sitting in, and so on. So the presentation of the arising is part of a direct communication with the factors around it. In Buddhism, they say this is dependent co-origination. On the basis of it being a damp day in early spring where it's a bit cold, maybe the pain becomes more intense. The pain. So we're already thinking that there is a pain, and sometimes it's more intense and sometimes it's not. So the actual sensation has been recruited as a symptom of the diagnosis or the conclusion, I have back pain, or I have a painful knee. Once I've got the conclusion, I can then build on top of that and elaborate it. And every time a new sensation arises, what is it? Is very rapidly answered by the construct, I have back pain. This is another instance of my chronic back pain. Now, that is a very normal way for us to proceed, in which we find meaning, we make meaning through packaging, through compounding, through gathering together momentary incidents, momentary emergences or events, and we put them into a package. And the more we do that, the frame of reference that we do to understand what is occurring is mediated through the concept rather than through the direct presence of what's arising. So, as a development from the first practice that we did just now, we have the well-known practices of Vipassana, which in its most general form involves scanning through the body to see what is this emergence. If the body is alive, it shows that aliveness as a field of sensation. So, as sensation arises, what is it? We have two possibilities. One is to catch the sensation with the concept, to label it, and to, as it were, incorporate it into our body of knowledge. But the body of knowledge is not the same as the living body of sensation. We have many different bodies. But if we want to stay with the immediacy of what is occurring, we have to allow the body to show itself. Instead of grasping and appropriating the first sign of what is emerging and putting it inside the wrapper of our concept and say, oh, my back's still sore. Oh, will this never change? So everything which occurs in the region of my back can be subsumed into this wrapper or package. And then we just go on with, getting some cream or going to the GP, going to the specialist clinic, on and on and on, discussing surgery, difficulties of that. And there can be a kind of hopelessness. I now have a story about myself, which is reinforced by stories that various medical professionals have enriched with their ideas. But what is a sensation? What is it? We have to taste it. How shall we taste it? Very often children decide they don't like a particular kind of food before they've even tasted it. They say, I know I don't like it. No, but just try it. Nah, horrible. It's not horrible, just try it. We're all eating it, why don't you eat it? It's horrible. So, that's a very illuminating experience, because this is what we do. We start with the conclusion that we know what something is, and then on the basis of that positioning, we adopt the stupidity of not investigating. I don't want to know because I already know what it is. So, in Vipassana meditation, we are relaxing the interpretive structure in order to open a space in which life can show itself. Life in its freshness, in its unmediated immediacy. What is this? So that's why, first of all, we practice the mental calming or shine or shamatha, whereby focusing on the breath or an external object, we get a bit more capacity not to be caught up in thoughts, not to be carried away by thoughts. Why do we get carried by thoughts? Because we think they are meaningful. This is how we generate meaning. If you can't make use of thoughts, you wouldn't get a job. You wouldn't be able to go to the job center, even to claim benefits. You have to be able to fill in forms. In order to function in this world, you have to be a very expert manipulator of thoughts and ideas. Our world is a conceptual world. That's what it means to be a human being. But this arena of concepts is like a cloud. It's floating above the immediate surface of what's here, moment by moment. It's like if we go walking outside and you see, oh, snowdrops. Well, we don't see snowdrops, we imagine snowdrops. Snowdrops are a name. In the field there are squirrels, there are foxes, there are rabbits, there are birds, there are insects. None of these know that this is a snowdrop. Snowdrop is what we do to this little thing that's growing there. We incorporate that into our frame of reference, but clearly many other creatures can walk around that or try and eat it depending on their diet, and they don't need to have any concept because they're relating to smell, touch, flavor, and so on. So as human beings, we have access to this wonderful capacity for conceptual elaboration, but it's not necessarily useful all the time. It takes on a life of its own. You can see that with small children, you know. By the time they're really getting into language, 2.5, moving into 3, they don't stop blithering. They just keep going, talking about this, talking about that, filling the world with their words. Because they're experiencing the incredible power that comes with being able to name things and then comment on them. I like, I don't like, this is mine, no you can't, I have to. Oh, watching small children, it's incredible. There's a huge gain in power as children move into language, but a huge loss as well. Because the sensitivity whereby someone who is 18 months to 2 years is mediating the world, it's much more through sensory immediacy. But once they come into language, it's as if they're moving always through their interpretation. So, in terms of thinking about death, I am going to die. That's fairly understandable, but what is this to be an I? Moment by moment, the I is manifesting as a flow of experiences. Can we see these experiences in their freshness without pulling them into a frame of reference? So this is what we call Vipassana meditation. We'll do a little bit of it together just now. And it's very useful, particularly if you have a tendency to become anxious or depressed or have a lot of regrets about the past. Because if you see that these are all elaborations, and they have some meaning in them, they allow us to communicate with other people something of what is going on for us. We can talk about our situation, but it's very sticky. So if we can come back to the first sensation in its freshness, there's a kind of freedom from this carapace or this wrapping, the shell of conceptual construction. So we do it in a very simple way. We sit as before, letting the skeleton carry our weight. Usually for this kind of practice, our gaze is slightly down, looking down the line of the nose. The tongue is on the hard palate beneath the upper teeth. Shoulders are open and relaxed, the hands resting on each other in the lap. Eyes, we're not staring, we're just letting the gaze run down the line of the nose, breathing in a normal way. So we begin, as before, focusing the attention on the breath, And when you have a little bit of stability to stay with that sensation, you bring the focused attention up to the crown of your head, and then just very gently move your attention down through your body. Just allowing what is there to register down to the soles of your feet and then back up again. Now, if you go in your shoulder and you have the thought, my shoulder is sore, you are telling yourself what is there. What is happening? Maybe something tight or tearing or heavy or dragging. That's much closer to the actual language of sensation. So we want to not tell ourselves what is there, but allow what is there the optimal open field to show itself. Just as a clean mirror will show very clearly what's in front of it. The mirror is not interpreting, it's not distorting, it just shows. So we want this simple open attention to reveal what is there without any commentary. So we go down through the body, registering what's there, and then back up to the top of the head. And we slowly go up and down. Any questions about that before we start? Okay, let's try it for a while. Okay. So just the name for this practice, Vipassana, means seeing clearly. In Tibetan it's Hlakthong, which means the best way of seeing. And if we keep doing it, we can start to see that the sensation is with time. When you are present, you have the sensation, and after time, out of time, comes the concept or the interpretation. It's lagging behind. And the thing about the sensation itself is you can't catch it. There's nothing there to grasp. It's some strange little thing. Just, it's undeniable, but what is it? In order to know what it is, you have to tell it what it is. And so that's the conceptual movement which is arising after the fact of the immediacy of the sensation. Thoughts catch thoughts. They don't catch sensation. So when you go to the doctor and you have to describe what's going on, you're telling the doctor about the thoughts that you have, the construction you have about what is happening for you, because you can't show it directly. It's not possible. Again, with small babies, for mothers, it can often be quite difficult. The baby's unhappy, won't settle, they're crying. What is it? If the kid's 4 or 5, at least they can say something, and that's reassuring, because that's how we feel we can make sense of what is going on. Making sense is a ridiculous term in English, because it's the very opposite of the senses. It's making concepts, not making sense. Because the senses are direct and immediate, and the concepts are elaborations which come after and put this wrapper around it. So when we do the Vipassana, see, life is evanescent. My body shows itself directly to me as a stream of arising sensation. As I go down through the body, so there's maybe something I see in my jaw, my face, and then when I come back up, it's not there anymore. It's gone. Something else has gone. Something else has come. Something else has come. So, when we experience dying, let's say not in an accident, and not in an operating theatre, but we're just lying in a bed, getting weaker and weaker, what we have is the arising of different kinds of sensation. Your body starts to go through these changes. The muscular sensation goes down, capacity to absorb water, to swallow goes down. You might wet the lips of the person, and gradually they heat up a little bit and starts to cool down. These are all sensations. These are the sensations of moving towards death. Now, if you are used to sensation, then you can just stay with the sensation. How shall we die? By being present with the changing pattern of sensations as they arise and pass. But if we have spent our whole life constructing storylines which allow us to enter into a judgment, then we can think, oh, I don't want to die. I've got things to do. I haven't done that. I haven't done that. So hopes, fears, regrets. What will happen to me after I die? Well, the question first would be, who are you while you're alive? Because if you don't have some sense of who you are, what it means to be this person, then when you're thinking about where will I go when I die, is imagining that there is something for it to go. Like, what will happen to my old, my precious old vase when I die? Who shall I give it to? Where will my self go? So first of all, we have to try to find out what the self is. What is the I? What is life? Not as starting with an assumption or a conclusion, but really, as they say in phenomenology, bracketing off assumptions so that there is a space for life to show itself. So this simple practice of Vipassana is very, very useful, and you can do it again and again and just see, oh, this is life before I tell myself what my life is. This is the pre-conceptual existence. Now, of course, it's incommunicable. And the Buddha often said, you can't say. In the Buddhist text, they often say that the mind itself, or awareness, is beyond speech, thought, and expression. And we can see this ourselves. You just scan down through your body. It is absolutely undeniable that there is occurrence, there is experience, but what it is can only be caught by abandoning the experience and substituting a thought about the experience, and then using that in the semiotic web, in the field of conceptual interaction that we have with others. That our life is fundamentally ungraspable and mysterious. It doesn't mean that it's kind of lonely or desolate or psychotic. It just means that, oh, all of this is occurring all the time. And then we can extend this practice when we go outside and we see. We imagine that we see trees and motor cars and other people. But what do we actually see? If I allow myself to receive the world before I tell the world what it is, everything is there. And there's nothing for me to do with it. Once I get into concepts, then I can make a judgment. Oh, someone's parked their car not very well, now that car can't get out, and so on. Well, that tree looks as if it could fall over in a storm. If that happened, it could fall on the roof here. I hope they've got insurance. Our mind can run and run and run with all sorts of thoughts and elaborations. But that's talking about the world. We fill the world with our concepts. And of course, that's a never-ending task. Once you commit yourself to being a stream of thoughts, you can't stop thinking, because then who would you be? So the function of meditation is to relax our addiction to thought and to enter into another domain. It's not an altered state of consciousness. It is exactly what has always been here, but it's as if it's a paradigm shift by not filling the world with our concepts. What is the immediate presentation of the phenomena? We see the tree. When the thought starts to arise in the mind, just relax into the out-breath as if you were focusing on the breath. Take the same focus onto the tree. Something is there, or something is appearing. Even before we think of as grammar is very difficult here because we always insert thing into everything. Something is there. But certainly appearance manifests, appearance shows. Stay with that. The empty mind receives the world as it is. The conceptual mind tells the world what it is. So this is a major kind of fulcrum point or turning point. And if we open to the world as it is, the whole process of being sick, of getting limited, and moving towards death is just that. Now, this may be rather annoying for other people. For example, I live in a world of sounds. People who know me and who hang out with me say, James, you're getting a bit deaf. That is an interpretation. What I live in is a world of sounds, and many of the sounds are not as clear as I remember them being. So I say, oh, what? Oh, that is my world. So you put a wrap around, oh, maybe I need to get a hearing aid and then I have to do this. So, and that may be something I will do. But what we have to know is that is allowing me to continue inside the kind of bandwidth of normal human communication. But as the hearing goes down, it's like that. Or if I don't put on my reading glasses, it's a bit foggy. That's what's there. That's what's there. Now you can say this is terrible because I need to read in order to do that. That's a whole stream of concepts. So you apply that, maybe you start to get really sick and you can't get out of bed. Bedridden. And you remember getting out of bed and it's really annoying and you have to even have other people help you shit and piss and it's embarrassing and so on. Because you think you should be other. And very often as people get older, they're persecuted by the sense that they are no longer who they were. No, that's just a fact. We are no longer who we were. When we were young, we liked to climb trees. There are probably not many people in this room who are very interested in climbing trees. So many doors which opened at one time, or many of the potentials of the world which were ripe and calling for us, they don't call us anymore, but other things call us. So to live present in our embodiment is much easier if we're not endlessly judging it and comparing it, worrying about getting wrinkles, worrying about hair falling out. So many things happen to the body, and it is what it is. It is what it is. Why would I want it to be other than it is? So this is so, from the Buddhist point of view, this is so important, because what it is, you can't actually catch. You look in the mirror and you see some sagging lines around your eyes or a bit collapsed in the cheeks. You just see, oh, this is a shape. You say, oh God, I'm getting old, look at that. I should get some Botox. So now I have an idea about myself, and I have an idea about what other people will find attractive, and I'm slipping away from this ideal, so I need to get back to that ideal. Why? the idea of myself becomes my true self, and how I actually am becomes some kind of horror story, which has to be covered up as much as possible. And this is the madness that we live inside. So how to be as we are? Other people can have their thoughts about us. The beginning of freedom is to allow other people to have their own opinions. Make of me what you will. That is you. It's not me. You cannot catch me. But you can only say that honestly, not in an ego defensive way. You can only really say it honestly from the heart if you recognize you can't catch yourself. So you look in the mirror and you see the sagging skin. What you see is sagging skin. That's all. What does it mean? Whatever you want it to mean. Whatever you want it to mean. You can hate yourself for it. You can have all sorts of thoughts about it. Leave it alone. It's just this. I'm like this. So when you really accept how the body is, how the health is, there's nothing really to hold on to. It's here. Sensations, abilities, inabilities, getting older, more having to get up in the night to pee and so on, all of these things, that's just what happens. So staying with the simplicity of how life shows itself frees us from entering into this endless judgment and correction, because at a certain point, as you move towards death, no correction is going to work. It is what it is. But if you spend all your life trying to correct, trying to adapt into some image, the idea is preceding your existence, rather than this is how it is, how shall I live with the fact that this is how it is? If I can't inhabit my own life, and I'm stepping out of my life to observe it and then compare and contrast to how I used to be or how someone else is. You know, how come your skin looks so young and healthy and mine's like this? It is what it is. It's not fair. Well, nothing has ever been fair. So meditation can help in the preparation for living and dying by allowing us just to be as it is. And if we really know how it is as it is, then you can take better care of your health. Because your body will say, get some exercise. The body will say, how about a few vegetables? The body... So the body shows itself. So these two, calming the mind and having insight or seeing clearly, opens up a lot of freshness and simplicity for appreciating the world. Okay, let's take a break now for up till 12 o'clock.